In your opinion, can you train someone to change?
No, absolutely not. Women always ask me, what did you do? What was, how did you find your husband? How did you train your husband? And it's luck and standards at the end of the day.
Welcome back to another episode of Till the Wheels Fall Off. I'm Matt.
I'm Paige.
I'm Abby.
Awesome. We'll get more to that here in a second. Quick apology to all of our listeners. I just realized as I was editing our last episode that I spent 12 minutes of your time talking about stuff that we offer, and that's ridiculous. I'm going to be quick about this. I'm going to make this more succinct. Brevity is not a skill that I possess, but I'm working on it. I can assure you of that. We have a website, www.twfo.com. That's tufo.com, where you can find things like merch. You can find our newsletter and blog that's posted every single week. If you scroll all the way to the bottom, you can enter your email address and get more information there. You can also find out about our course. If you're a listener of our content and you want to know, hey, how did she get to where she is? What kind of mindset do I need to adopt to heal through this? How do I make it through addiction? How do I figure out how to live my own life? Turn my focus inward. You can find out more about that by going to independentlystrong.com. And for a limited time, Wheelies get 75% off by entering the code Wheelies75. Again, that's Wheelies with an S, 75. And we've got a sponsor for today's episode. SoberLink is brought to you by SoberLink. SoberLink is the most high-tech breathalyzer in the world. It is a discreet and reliable way to monitor sobriety. So whether you're navigating a co-parenting or custody agreement or working on your own recovery and you want to prove sobriety to somebody, it is a great way to give peace of mind. It's a portable device that lets you test from anywhere, work, home, doesn't matter. Uses facial recognition, government facial recognition technology, like unlocking your phone like an iPhone or something like that, to make sure that the right person is testing. And if something's off, there is a 24/7 team on standby that steps in for a manual review. It has built-in tamper detection because we know that guys like me are really crafty and creative, and we will find ways to get around shit. You're not allowed to do that with SoberLink. They built a really good device that prevents this, and it's all about accountability. But here is the thing, and this is important. We do not want to put a larger burden on a spouse to think that this is going to solve all their problems. Let's be clear. This is not going to fix your relationship. This is a tool that, if someone is voluntarily using, is a great way to rebuild trust. If you've been with someone who's a chronic relapser or something like that, this is a great way to rebuild trust. It lets you set up intervals in which you can blow. You both agree on this. But I think both of us, Paige and I, both agree that I wouldn't have it any other way if I was in a custody agreement.
Right.
To be able to prove this. And it is court admissible in all 50 states and in Canada, offering proof when sobriety really matters. And that's why over 200,000 clients trust SoberLink, and it's often called the gold standard in court. So if you're looking for accountability and peace of mind, visit soberlink.com/wheels to sign up and get $50 off a device. Again, that's soberlink.com/wheels. And now on to the episode.
Awesome. You did great.
Thank you. We are here with Abby Eckel. And for those of you that do not know Abby Eckel, I will give my best at a brief introduction. Abby has become, I think, our favorite content creator here over the last year. I found a video, which we will play soon. It was your equal partner video. Abby makes feminist content. She makes content about relationships, motherhood, marriage, equal partnerships, and many other things. She is feisty. She is well-spoken, and she is amazing. And she's agreed to come on our show, and we cannot thank you enough. So, Abby, if you would just introduce yourself briefly for the guests.
Yeah, I'm Abby Eckel. You can find me on both TikTok and Instagram at Abby Eckel. I am a full-time working mom. I actually work like 3 jobs. And I'm a mom, and I'm a wife, and I am a content creator.
Awesome. So we're going to get right into it. I consider you an expert on this. I really do. I think that your perspectives and your knowledge and your experience speak for themselves. So let's get into the current landscape of relationships and marriage. So what do you see as the biggest challenge in most relationships today in 2024?
I would have to say the unequal division of labor, and that's domestic labor, invisible labor, mental labor, relational labor, all of the labors. I recently polled my followers, which do skew about 90% women, but I got over 200 and probably about 280 responses. And of those, when I asked what was the one thing that you wish you would have talked about more before marriage, the number one thing was domestic labor, the division of it, and the mental and invisible labor. I don't think anybody's really prepared for that. I think it is probably the number one issue in most relationships and marriages.
And it's kind of assumed, I think, by many people that this is something that you sort of work out. I think that oftentimes, and as we'll get into, this falls on the shoulders of women to carry most of this weight. That's just how it's been set up for so long. And I think that many women assume that when we get married, you are going to do at least half of this shit. But it just doesn't end up that way.
No. And I don't even know if I don't know if women go into it thinking that it'll be equal. I didn't, but I was 24. I don't know who let me get married that young, to be completely honest, but I would not recommend it. But I don't think you really go, when you're that young, I don't think you really go into it, because I didn't. Nobody had talked to me about this. I didn't know what I didn't know. My mom will tell you I'm a messy person. I don't pick up after myself. In a lot of marriages, I am the man. I'm not disgusting. I'm not filthy, but I'm not tidy. I'm not neat. But my husband was always, we lived together. We moved in together after 3 months of knowing each other. And he just did his own, we just did our own thing. And we just happened to live under the same roof. We both cooked dinner. He made himself lunch because he worked a 3 to 11 shift. So I wasn't even home when he left for work. And so he took care of himself. He did his own laundry. He's very particular about his laundry and his clothes and what gets hung dry and what doesn't. And he's much more tidy than I am. I do the dishes. I'm not disgusting. I see things, I pick up after myself, but I just never felt like I needed to do that with him. But then the more I realized that was incredibly abnormal, and not something that most women shared, the more I was like, this is a really big problem that we get into marriages. And a lot of times when we get into marriages, it's not that big of an issue. It's not as glaring, because you can handle, kind of cleaning up after two people. You can handle carrying that mental load of two people, being kind of that kin keeper, keeping everybody's family aware, doing all of the family stuff. But then you throw a child in there, you throw another child in there, and that's when shit hits the fan. And you're like, I cannot do all of this alone. How did we get here? And it's because nobody talks about it.
I'd agree with that. So I was scrolling TikTok one night and you pop up and there's this video and it's got tons of views, tons of comments, which we'll talk about in a moment. They make me want to throw a chair. Frankly, it's insane. It's insane. But I'm going to play the video for context for listeners. You can find this video, as she mentioned, Abby Eckel on TikTok, Instagram. Let's get into that real quick.
I have an equal partner. I don't have to make him a list. I have an equal partner. I don't have to ask him to help with things around the house. I have an equal partner. He knows how to shop at the grocery store without pictures. I have an equal partner. He doesn't expect me to handle everything alone. I have an equal partner. He plans date nights without me having to beg for it. I have an equal partner. He does his own laundry. I have an equal partner. He makes his own appointments. I have an equal partner. My stocking has never been empty. I have an equal partner. He makes the kids' lunches in the morning. I have an equal partner. He makes and takes their son to his therapy appointments. I have an equal partner. He doesn't believe that just because he goes to work, he shouldn't have to do anything when he gets home. I have an equal partner. He takes genuine interest in me and my interests. I have an equal partner. He knows how to fold towels. I have an equal partner. He takes our kids to bed and knows their teachers' names. I have an equal partner. He doesn't make me feel bad if I'm not in the mood. I have an equal partner. He acknowledges and appreciates what I do and tells me that often. I have an equal partner. He does basic adult tasks without being asked.
Excellent.
Boom.
And beautiful.
Yes.
And I loved it. And I was like, oh my God.
Yeah, we were both like, yes. Hell yes.
Instant follow. Instant follow. Mm-hmm. And then I went into the comment section. And this
never
was
read the comments.
the most insane thing I've ever seen, and probably the most common comment I saw primarily from men. So most of it, I think, is actually supportive. It's women being like, hell yes. Like, why is this not discussed more? Like, this should be the standard. Why is the bar on the fucking floor? And then there's a lot of comments from men that are throwing jabs at you saying, well, what do you do? As if you're not inferring in the video that you can do every single one of the tasks that you just mentioned. You know, it's like as if you're just flexing that you don't, like, what do you do? Sit on a throne all day? It's like, come
I'm
on.
a princess.
Yeah. Exactly. But it was insane.
I don't do anything.
You were highlighting that unequal partnerships and male privilege in marriages is a common thing. Did you know this video was going to go as wild as it did? Did you have a feeling it was like, oh, that was a good one?
You know, it's always the ones that I spend the least amount of time on. When I saw this, there was that trend where people were like, it was, I forget, but it was like, oh, I'm a woman. Like, I don't have to do this, or like, I'm a man, or, that kind of like bantering. Usually it was like two people. And I was like, my husband you'll probably never see him in my videos unless I'm like videotaping him and he doesn't know it. And even then I try not to do that. But I was like, I have to do this on my own. And so honestly, that is not the biggest video that has blown up. I've done one similar where it was like 2 years ago and it got like 17 million views, which is the most like any of my videos have ever gotten. But I did something similar where I talked about all the things that my husband does, and all the things he doesn't do as well. But I was like, okay, it was quick. It was dirty. I just threw it up. But then I was like, I do know, I am strategic. I know when I talk about what my husband does, it's going to get a reaction. It's going to get great reaction from women because they're going to understand, and it's going to just really piss men off. And also that found like conservative TikTok. It found conservative Twitter or X, whatever. I'm not on that dumpster fire of an app. You won't find me there. I will never be. But a lot of people were like sending it to me, like some conservative influencers or whatever were posting about it, like, oh, your husband's so effeminate. You're emasculating him. And I'm like, I'm not holding a gun to his head. The man does it on his own because he actually likes me. I don't know what to tell you. But I had an inkling that it would, just knowing what I know about when I share this type of content, but I didn't know it would go like this.
Why do you think equality feels like oppression to men?
I think because it's women speaking the truth, which a lot of time for a lot of men, for some reason, feels like a direct attack of what they're not doing. It's saying, you're not doing this because I'm doing it. And that means that then they're doing something wrong or they're not doing enough. And then it makes them feel like they're not enough. And I haven't quite figured out why that is. I feel like it's a lot of societal conditioning, because I think, but I also think men have grown up with this idea that all they have to do is bring home a paycheck. And then that should kind of absolve them from doing anything else. And it doesn't matter that 75% of women between 25 and 54 are also working. And then they're also coming home and doing the majority of the domestic labor and the childcare. For some reason, that just hasn't like clicked with them. They're still under this mindset that they just have to go to work. And maybe they'll throw the ball around with their sons or their kids in the back, in the backyard. And maybe they'll make pancakes on Sunday. But aside from that, they really shouldn't be expected to do much more. And society has allowed that. And really, society has kind of perpetuated that. And women have accepted it because they haven't known better, because nobody's told them that it's okay to expect better.
Love that. Something that we see a lot, and I want to know if this makes your skin crawl, same it does like Paige's, is that someone will be talking about their spouse who is emotionally abusive. They're neglectful, they're absent, like emotionally and physically. And they'll say, but he's such a good dad though. I'm like, okay, so what is that exactly? So what does that mean? What do you mean good dad? As Paige puts it, what do we get to do? All the
fun stuff.
Right.
You get to do the fun shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're like a babysitter.
You get to go get pizza. You get to be the one who lets them stay up late at night. You are not the disciplinarian. You are not the one who is communicating with the teachers. You kind of step in. You might say, hey, don't talk to your mom like that. And that can kind of be, the extent of it. But I think Anna Kendrick recently said this in an interview where she was like, somebody asked her why she didn't want to have kids. And she was like, I always hear men say, I'd like to have a couple of kids running around. And women never say that. And it's because I don't think men truly understand the depth of what it means to be a father, to be a present and participative father. And they just think that, they just get to kind of pop in and out at leisure. Their life doesn't really change. They don't really have to check in. They can still go golf. They can still go out after work with their buddies because they know somebody's already got it under control. And so, and women don't force that. Women don't force that to change either, mostly because we don't know that we can. We've been conditioned to believe that this is just how it is. My life's going to change drastically and he'll continue to work. And because he works, I can't really say anything. I shouldn't, he probably makes more money than me because most men do. And I should just be grateful because he's not beating me. He's not going out on me. He's the bare minimum. I think Matthew Frey talks about this in his book, This Is How Your Marriage Ends. And he says, being a good guy simply means you're just a good guy. And that's so below bare minimum, honestly. And that's really just, you're not beating your wife. You kind of show up, but that's the extent of it. There's no going more than that. There's no emotional depth to it. And it's really, it really sucks because the standard for being a good dad and the standard for being a good mom are so, it's unattainable to be a good mom, really. And so easy to be a good dad.
Yeah. I think you're absolutely right about that. And I think what really gets at a lot of men and with videos like this is that you're stripping away in some sense, this privilege that they've had for a very long time where they've been able to get away with this and you're asking for more and they're simply saying, I don't want to. And the louder you speak, the more this gets out, the more it threatens my position, my control, my power. So keep speaking is what I'm saying. Keep speaking.
Oh, you have to, every time a man is like, shut up, I'm like, pay me. Because it's the only way I'm going to be quiet. And even then it'd have to be a large sum of money.
Right.
Okay. So let's talk about a path toward equality and change briefly. How would you believe that we could create more equality in marriages?
I think it would take a lot of work from men to unpack the social conditioning that they have had. And not only theirs, but women too. Because you can't really empathize if you don't know what the other side has gone through. Women know, we are aware of the patriarchal conditioning that men have had, of the toxic masculine messages that they've received as children. And we're saying, this negatively affects you guys too. This isn't just to our benefit, it's to yours as well. There is a male loneliness epidemic. Men commit suicide at a much higher rate than women, a much higher success rate than women, yet they're less likely to seek out help, even though they know they need it and they could benefit from it. And it's because they're afraid of what other men in society are going to think because of that messaging. It's going to take a lot to unpack for them and to work through and to realize that in doing so, it will be really freeing for them and really liberating. But there's a lot of internal individual work, I believe, that has to be done, because otherwise, if you're emotionally immature, you're not able to empathize with what the wife is going through, with what she's had to deal with the obstacles that she faces. And if you can't do that, then you can't put yourself in their shoes. And if you can't put yourself in their shoes, then it's so easy to dismiss and invalidate their feelings. So it takes a lot of work, but typically we know women seek help more. Women work through their trauma more. Women seek therapy more. So they're more likely to have gone through and unpacked a lot of this where men haven't. And I hate to say this because I don't, contrary to what everybody believes, I don't like to blame men. I don't hate men. I empathize with them so much and I get frustrated that they won't get out of their own fucking way. They're just so tied to worried about what other men are going to say, what other men are going to think. They're going to feel emasculated. They're going to be seen as feminine because they talk to a therapist, because they get help, because they love their wife. I can't tell you the amount of times somebody tells me my husband's gay because he bought me a dress and shoes, because he actually knows what I like and knows my size, because he takes a genuine interest in me. It's just, they're going to have to get out of their own way. otherwise we're going to continue to see less marriages, more divorces, and less babies being made. And we're already seeing that. And we're already projected to see that.
You're absolutely right. Yeah, you can look at the data on this. Like, it does not lie, and you are right on the money. And something else that's a lot of men don't understand is when it comes to this whole for the longest time, to be a good man or to be the excellent man, it's provider, protector. That's it. That's it. That's the only two criteria you have to meet, and nothing else really matters. If you bring home a check and you own a gun, or consider yourself a protector, then you qualify, right? The bar is so fucking low. Like, there's no barrier to entry there really at all. But women are now the primary breadwinners in 41% of U.S. households as well. So women are going to school more, they're graduating more. And you're right, they're kind of rebelling against this idea that we don't like the way this is set up. And they're not budging. And instead of changing, men are resistant to it. How long do you think before we see a shift? Are we a generation away, 2 generations away, 3, 4? What do you think?
I think we've got a long way to go. And I think as we're seeing, I think our very first, and probably not even our first indicator, but one of the first indicators was the fall of Roe v. Wade. We've been seeing for a while the decline in marriage. We've been seeing the uptick in divorce, and we've been seeing the decline in the birth rate. Not even just here in the States, but kind of everywhere. And that is the patriarchy gripping again, because instead of being accountable, instead of doing the hard work of looking at why are women choosing this, we're going to say, I don't want to have to do all that. I'm going to control a little bit more. I'm going to grip a little bit harder. I'm going to take away women's rights. We're going to force them to have babies if they don't want to do it on their own. And we're going to make them cogs in the capitalistic machine. And then we've seen it. I see no-fault divorce on the horizon. It's a slippery slope. You take away one right, it's easier to take away two. And that's the grip of we're losing control. Women have the upper hand here. We're seeing the patriarchy starting to crumble. And instead of men doing the work, they're making it harder for women. They're trying harder to control women. And they can do that because it's a patriarchal society, which is benefiting men, and it's run by men, and they're the most in the government and in Congress, and they're making the decisions. And so it's hard. We've got a long way to go. And now we're seeing that more Gen Z men identify as conservative, which means we've still got even further to go.
Yeah, you're right. Like when you can't control it inside, you just change policies, right? That's kind of like what they've identified. Like, let's just change policies and we can kind of keep this going in the direction we want. And you're right, there's a huge, like this subsect of men now, like especially younger generations that are fading conservative, which has been sort of fascinating to watch in my mind. But I think they look at it as almost zero sum. It's like, well, women can't win because that means we lose, rather than looking at it like when women win, actually, we all win.
We all win. Our
children win. Everyone wins when women win. But it's, this is power controls, power dynamic, and everything else has been going on forever. And so something that Paige and I come across a lot, we get a lot of DMs and messages, and people will ask us from an addiction standpoint, like, how can I get him sober? Like, how can I get him to act right? Like, how do I get him to do what you did? They'll be referencing me. Like, they'll ask her, like, how did you train him to do that? I'm sure you get a lot of the same messages. In your opinion, can you train someone to change?
No, absolutely not. Women always ask me, what did you do? What was, how did you find your husband? How did you train your husband? And it's luck and standards at the end of the day. It was luck. We didn't have, addiction to overcome. How I would love to hear how Paige responds to those types of DMs. Because for me, it's that it was a little bit of luck and a lot of standards. But for most women, it's never going to be that simple. It's an unfortunate truth. The odds are stacked against them in terms of what we know about men and what the stats say about their emotional intelligence and their ability to exert empathy. I think a lot of women just need to also learn to love themselves and realize that the worst thing in the world is not being single and childless. We've been told from a very young age that the worst thing we could be is single and childless, that we are most worthy when we have a man and we have children. And we have to do a better job of that for women. But there's no training. You can't teach someone empathy. You can't teach someone to see you as a person. You can't teach someone to appreciate the labor that you provide in a relationship. That can only be done by them, and that can only be done by them doing the work themselves. And yeah, I think you can probably do it a lot alone, with outside resources. I'm sure you guys have amazing resources that are helpful. I think therapy is really helpful too, but there's no magic equation to attracting a good man. There's no cheat code. And I hate that there's so many female influencers that are, oh, just being your divine feminine. No, fuck that. That's repurposed misogyny. I'm sorry, but no. It's really just have standards, don't settle, don't lose your stream of income, and get a prenup. That's what you do.
Yeah. And don't do everything for your partner all the time. Like
don't
that's
everything for your partner.
What
ever.
we did, even from the get-go. Like I didn't I would do laundry occasionally and stuff like that. We would do things, but I wouldn't make lists for him. I wanted him to do whatever he needed to do because he needs to be a person. He's a person and he's a grown-ass man. He's got to learn to do these things on his own. It's not my responsibility to parent him. It's not my responsibility to make sure that he's doing what he needs to do. And that was me setting my standards. And he picked up on it, luckily. But a lot of men don't. Or some men don't, or maybe women do too much and they don't realize that they're doing too much, and it's actually causing like an issue for them to actually figure out how to do things on their own, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it is, and that's one of the things that's interesting whenever I talk about this, whenever I tell this, because one thing my mom did teach me was set out as you mean to go on, and I've taken that to my core. I have never felt the need to go in and make my husband a lunch, to remind him to call his mom for her birthday, to, remind him of important things. If it's important to you, you'll make it a priority. I'm not going to make it a priority for you. If I'm not a priority, I'll see that and I'll leave. But a lot of women, I think, also are conditioned to believe that we show our worth to men, consciously or subconsciously, by providing domestic labor. We do it to young boys too. We see it, in young boys when moms or aunts or grandmas say, well, how could you leave? Who's going to feed you? Who's going to do your laundry? How are you going to take care of yourself? They're already planting those seeds of you're already incompetent. You already need to rely on a woman to do those things for you. And we do boys and men a great disservice by giving them that type of messaging. But we also do a great disservice to women by making them believe that we just need to do these things for them. And whenever I tell women in a video, don't start doing these things. Don't start cleaning his apartment. Don't start folding his laundry. Don't start making his appointments or reminding him of shit. And the first thing men always say, well, I guess I just won't change your oil. I'm like, okay, all right. And over 50% of women maintain their own cars. We're like, oh, sorry, I've got to drive my ass down to the Jiffy Lube. Oh, okay. What? I'll never mow my own grass. I just won't mow your own grass anymore. I'm like, okay. That's not, and they don't understand that it's because of conditioning that I'm telling women this, that it's because of the conditioning that we received that I'm saying, don't do this because you're going to set yourself up for this to become expected. And then when it's expected and you find yourself 10 years down the road in this relationship and you're fucking drowning and you're like, I've got to offload some of this. Why would he ever take that on? He's benefited so greatly. His life has been made so easy by you doing all of it. It's going to take so much more convincing and undoing to get him to see that than it is if you just would have never started doing it in the first place. And it's not because it's not love. I shouldn't have to show you love through acts of service, through providing you a service. That's not love to me. And if you view that as love, then this isn't going to work because that's not love.
Yeah.
I love that.
That was
all of it.
Excellent.
Yes.
Excellent.
Yes.
I loved every bit of that.
Sometimes I say good shit.
Always.
Shit, man.
We're like back here, just,
It's like the land of nodding heads over here, man. So when it comes to addiction is, science deems addiction a disease. There are plenty other mental health disorders that people may have. One I see that pops up in your comment section a lot is ADHD. People could have BPD, they could have narcissistic personality disorder. There's all sorts of disorders and these things that prevent people from showing up completely. But do you think that things like this, things like addiction or things like any kind of hardship that you may have, a mental disorder or something like that, does that excuse the lack of domestic labor? Does that excuse bad behavior? Does that excuse these things?
No, I don't think it excuses them. I think it gives context. And context is always important because there's a lot of nuance when it comes to these things. I won't just say, oh, I mean, I have bipolar 2 disorder. I have anxiety. My youngest has ADHD. Like we're a very neurodivergent family, except for my husband, who is somehow just incredibly neurotypical. But it's not an excuse, but it is good context to have because those if we don't understand that because we can't be in that position, like I don't expect my husband to understand what's happening to me when I'm going through an episode of hypomania. But he can empathize with it because he understands it and I can communicate with him. Hey, sometimes I can, sometimes I have no fucking idea it's happening. And I'm like, it takes me a minute, but other times it takes me, I have to do the work myself to understand, like, this isn't an excuse. This isn't a crutch. This isn't a reason why I can't show up necessarily. Sometimes I physically can't. Sometimes I show up in a really wrong way. But it's being able to take accountability for that. And ADHD shows up the most when I hear this because I think a lot of people do have it. I think a lot of women are late diagnoses. And it's more so just saying, okay, I know that I have this. I can talk through it. I can figure out ways where I can find like, oh, this really trips me up. Like for me, cleaning in general takes me hours because I have a really hard time like with my executive function. But I know that. So what have I done? I've researched it. I've talked to my therapist about it because it becomes really overwhelming and it takes me a really long time to get through those things. Instead of using an excuse to say, this is why I don't do it, use it as a way to find a better way of doing it, to still show up for my family. I just would never expect my husband, to continue to maybe pick up the slack in the moment. I've had hypomanic attacks where it's landed me in the hospital and he has no choice. But outside of that, like it's still on me to communicate, hey, I'm having this. I need a little bit more help right now, but not saying always for the rest of time, I expect you to do this because I just can't do it. So it's not an excuse, but I do want to say that it does provide context, and I'm not like, oh, that's bullshit. Like, because I don't think that. These are very real diseases. These are very real diagnoses, and I do empathize with that, but I don't empathize with people who refuse to help themselves around it or with it.
Yeah. So looking at it as a challenge instead of an obstacle is kind of the way to do it, and figuring out how to cope with it and do better with it, or, understanding that you have a partner who can pick up the slack when you can't, and all those things. And I really like how you framed all that. That's great.
Yeah, that's a beautiful answer. Do you think that and I think we completely agree on this, understanding gives context, right? Context, not excuses. But something I see a lot from our audience, maybe you have some of this too, as you seek to understand more and more and more and more, it can sometimes lead you down the rabbit hole where understanding becomes a trap of inaction. When you're in a dangerous or toxic situation and you're like, I just need to understand him more. I need to understand more about his background and his trauma. And you can spend years and years and years trying to understand why someone is the way they are. But in the meantime, you're being hurt by their harmful behaviors. You're being invalidated. You're being undervalued. Your children could be in a dangerous situation. Like they are watching all of this shit and what's being tolerated and what's happening. So do you find that too with your audience, where this seek to understand almost as a way to fix? I think they don't realize it, but sometimes It's a way to try to fix or control what's happening.
Yeah, definitely. I think a lot of women find themselves as women, we are brought up to believe that we are anticipatory of everybody else's needs. And if we can just control things a little bit better, if we can just make things go a little bit differently, we'll have a better understanding of it and we can change the outcome of it. And we can't. We only have, we're limited here. And at the same time, we also have to realize that we don't have to stick it out. We don't have to continue to be abused in any fashion, in any way, shape, or form. We can make the change, but a lot of times I have a problem personally where I can just research this away. I can just research this long enough. I'm going to find the answer and then I can change it. And I can't. I can't do that. Or if I research enough, I don't have to feel this way. I don't have to feel this way. And you can't, unfortunately, research away your feelings. You have to sit with them and you have to live through them. But it is really hard, because I think in doing so, and especially on behalf of somebody else, when it comes to addiction, if it's something we've never personally gone through and we really want to try to understand it, we can get to the point where we begin making excuses for that person, and for their behavior, instead of being able to take that as context and use it in a way that is actually helpful. But that's hard, because I think a lot of women feel like they have to fix. And if I could just fix this, if I could just change this, he would be better. I can fix him. And really, you can't fix somebody else. They have to want to fix themselves.
Yeah. So that's a beautiful answer. I agree with that wholeheartedly. Something that I think Paige has always been like great at is nothing that she does for me, but something that's just like, just a natural quality that you have is that. So she's a highly sensitive person, and has an immense amount of empathy and compassion. And when it comes to like equal partnership, like I'm not shocked at all if someone just has zero fucks to give anymore. Like no more patience for this load that they carry. And like you're watching a grown adult sit across the table from you and just not give a damn about anything that's going on. But if someone does want to bring this conversation up and they want to have the talk, like you said, I don't think you mentioned it here, but I've heard in some of your past stuff where you've mentioned the book Fair Play, and you can have this conversation about the mental load and the domestic labor and everything else while understanding someone's struggles. Like, how do you balance, I guess, compassion with action and that need to like something's got to change here. I understand what you're going through, but how do you balance the two? I know you've done a great job at it, but
it's hard, because when you are I don't have a great answer. It's because it's hard when you find yourself in that position and there's such a growing resentment. You have been trying and trying and trying and communicating this way and that way and the other. I would say you work through resentment in therapy so that you can learn to let things, I don't want to say necessarily let things go, but learn how to push through them if that's the path that you choose. And I think if you're wanting to implement, if you're going to somebody, your spouse, and you're saying you want to have the conversation about the unequal division of labor, it's, I am always empathetic. I am like Paige. I'm a highly sensitive person. I can tell when my husband comes home if something's wrong by the way his foot hits the floor. I'm too in tune with people like that. But I always ask, like, I want to have an important conversation with you. Is today a good day, or would there be a better day? Because I don't know what his day has been like. He doesn't know what mine has been like necessarily. And I want to be conscientious of that, because if I want to have a productive conversation, that's going to play a role in it. If he's had a really shitty day, we're not going to have a productive conversation. So now is not the time. So we're going to have to, put this on hold for a second and then come back to that. And then it's finding a way to take a step back. We're not going to do this when we're angry and irrational. I write things down because I tend to get really emotional in these types of things where I'm sharing things that have upset me or that I want to see change in, and I will forget. So I write things down beforehand that I really want to cover off on. And it's not because I'm like, oh, I've checked all these off. I'm just like waiting for you to, do all these things. And here I am presenting all the shit that you did wrong. But it helps me in like remembering these are the important things that I really want to hit on and talk to you about. And realizing that if it gets unproductive, I'm going to shut it down. I'm going to shut down, and we're going to have to revisit this. So I think it's really having a plan and telling your partner your plan. I want to have an important conversation with you. I'm not going to raise my voice. If you raise yours, I will stop talking. We will pause this and come back. But I do expect these outcomes, because when you're saying that, then it's then you're kind of setting the precedent. You're setting your expectations. And then throughout the discussion, I always pause after I say something and I say, okay, this is what I said, but what did you hear? Because a lot of times what I said and what you heard are not going to be the same. And I think that's a really good way, because a lot of times it comes off as I can't do anything right. Nothing it's not good enough. I'm just not showing up enough for you. And that's not what I said at all, but that's what you heard. Now we have to work through that. And now we can let me explain a little bit more what I meant by that. But having productive conversation is a lot of fucking work. Yeah. It's taken me and my husband a really long time to learn how to communicate. Me specifically, I'm a terrible communicator. I never saw it modeled really well in my family. And I tend to I just bottle things up and I sit on them because I fight myself. Do I even have a reason to be upset about this? Let me think about that. Let me sit on this. And even all the while, I'm just pissed. But I'm do I have a reason? I try to go through well, maybe he did it because of this and maybe he did it because of that. But one of the things that's also really helped me is understanding that my husband doesn't do things out of malice or with ill intention. He's not doing it or saying it to purposely harm me. And I just tend to work through okay, why did that harm me? Or why did that upset me? Because it's not usually the topical thing that gets my immediate reaction. There's something underneath there that I need to dig through a little bit before I bring it to the table. That was a really long answer, and I don't know if I answered your question.
That was great.
I think it was excellent. That's excellent. I think that what you've basically described there is no doubt you've done a lot of work within yourself too to understand emotional intelligence. I think that in general, women come conditioned with more of this. I'm not sure if they come stock with more of it, but I know that they are conditioned much more to understand emotional intelligence. And you're right. Mm-hmm. Many men don't. I've said this for many years that so many men do not understand the language of emotions. And so we get emails and DMs and it's how can I bring this up? I'm you can bring it up however you'd like. You can come up with them with the most beautiful, eloquent statement. And if they're not emotionally intelligent, they're going to hear what you just described, which is I'm never good enough. I can't do enough. Mm-hmm. And they've got these cognitive distortions that are kind of at play in their mind that they're not even aware of. Right. And then it just becomes extremely unproductive. But you're right. If they wanted to, they would. I think that that's something that I've always stood by. If they wanted to understand, they would try to understand. You won't have to beg them to understand. And sometimes it can be maddening. But we also as creators, you'd probably agree, you still hold space for people, even though it can be frustrating at times when you hear this kind of stuff, because this is years and years and years of conditioning. From our side, years of conditioning from the medical community telling people listen, they have a disease. And then they're calling these women just flat out codependent. They will call a woman codependent as she's trying to hold her family together, as she's fighting for everything to keep their home over their heads, as she's, working to get the kids going. Well, that's enabling him. You're codependent. Hang on, time out. That's not even fair. That's not fair.
Yeah.
How do you even broach this kind of conversation? I don't think there is a way to, with someone who's not willing to hear it, someone who can't hold space with that. And then I think a theme that I heard that I want to discuss just a bit is this learned and or weaponized helplessness that a lot of partners exhibit.
Yeah, that's a tough one. Weaponized helplessness, weaponized ignorance, weaponized incompetence. It goes under many different names, but it's so hard because I think it's a large part of conditioning. I know as a mom of two boys, I feel like I'm working overtime because it's so much easier if I just do it myself. My oldest is the king of half-assing shit. And I'm oh, sweet baby Jesus. I'm Lord put me here for a reason. Lord gave me two boys for a reason. Because it becomes easier. And I think a lot of moms did that with their sons, with grown men now, is that their husbands weren't doing it. They weren't sharing equitably, and trying to get their sons to do anything around the house created more work for themselves. And they were finding any way that they could to do less of it, which meant never teaching boys how to do anything for themselves. Or very early on, realizing that, okay, maybe I can hand this off to my son. And he half-asses it. And you're oh my God, fuck it, I'll do it myself. And he says, oh, if I just don't do it right, I don't have to do it again. And whether they realize it consciously or they kind of take that subconsciously, it comes up in other areas, whether that's in the work, whether that's at home in a relationship. And I honestly don't, I struggle to see if men do it on purpose or if it is part of the subconscious conditioning that they've received. But, I try to give the example of if I went out and mowed the lawn and I fucked it up and I didn't set the blade right, or I didn't weed eat, or I didn't do it, like, you would then have to go out and do it again because it wouldn't be to your standard. And your standard is a standard because you've been the only one owning that task. So if I've been the only one owning the task of doing the dishes or loading the dishwasher, and now I'm saying you need to come and do this, and you fuck it up on purpose, or you don't know how to do it because you didn't ask, or you won't listen to me because I'm a control freak, that creates more work for me. Now I have to go back and do it myself. And now again, I've shown you that if you just fuck it up enough, I'll go in and do it for you. And so this learned, I think it is a little bit of learned helplessness and weaponized, because then men realize that they can weaponize it and it benefits them greatly. I also think it's a power thing. Maybe it's intentional, maybe it's not, but I think men see a lot of that stuff as beneath them. The doing the dishes, the grocery shopping, the kids' bath, the, communication with the teachers, that's beneath them. That's women's work. And I'm a man, so I don't really need to engage in that. And if I do, then it's emasculating me, and I'm effeminate. And so it's really hard, and it takes so much work because there's so much conditioning. Like, I'm reading the book Boy Mom. I think I mentioned before we started the show, and it says, I have it somewhere, but she says that, like, from infancy, in the makeup of boys, like in their literal, like, genetic makeup of all the shit that goes into that, on every single measure, they are less resilient and more fragile than girls. And yet we treat them in the exact opposite. Mm-hmm. And it's just so deep. And to make a meaningful change takes so much work. But the weaponized incompetence and the weaponized helplessness is, God, it's a deep cut in marriages, and it breeds a lot of distrust that I think people don't really realize. Like, I'm sorry, if I can't trust you to put the leftovers in a container into the fridge instead of just throwing the pans in there, what big stuff can I also not trust you with? And I think people fail to see that.
Yeah, that's something I struggle with mightily. Is like you mentioned, like, is this malice or are you just stupid? And like,
yeah, have you never truly been taught that?
Yeah, and like that's Hanlon's razor is like, don't attribute to malice what can be explained by stupidity, but sometimes it makes you fucking wonder, doesn't it? It really does. Like, you're sitting here measuring this. It's like, oh my gosh. And you also mentioned something about that book, and I want to check it out. What was the name of it again? The one you're reading right now?
It's called Boy Mom by Ruth Whitman. There's a longer, like, subtext of it. It's like raising boys in the age of toxic messaging or something like that. But great book. Really makes me cry because it feels like I can't do anything right. But very good in understanding the way boys are raised and the makeup of them.
I would agree with that resiliency piece, right, that you just mentioned. For the last 2 years, I've had the privilege of spending most of my time with thousands of women online, talking about issues that are important to women. And I've seen both sides. That was what I'm trying to say. And I've gotten to know women really, really well. And I would agree with that. I think that in general, much more resilient, much more emotionally intelligent, much more able to process major issues and get through big things and find solutions. And I've worked with a lot of men through recovery and helped a lot of men kind of right the ship, if you will. And it is night and day. It is absolutely night and day. It is nothing close to the same. It's nuts.
Girls
and
are dandelions and boys are orchids.
What was that?
Girls are dandelions and boys are orchids.
Oh yeah, they're so finicky, aren't they?
So
has anyone in history ever
like
actually kept one of those alive?
I don't know. I don't keep plants alive. I have enough things to keep alive. I don't need another thing.
That's like the most finicky plant of all time.
Yeah.
An orchid.
Oh, I kill them every time. Some people give them to me as gifts, and I'm like, okay,
they're
thank
beautiful.
You. They are. They're pretty for 2 weeks.
I'm like, well, there goes that. Lost another one.
Yeah.
Okay, so when we're talking about like changing the dynamics of marriage, and this is a system that's been in place for a very, very, very long time. I think some of it is picked up culturally, some of it's through like church and religion, some of it is just like, this is the way it's always been. And I think it's a kind of a rule that we've adopted. It's like, if something is the way it's always been, like, let's just at the very least question it. Is it just that way because it just ended up that way? Or is there a reason for any of this? But something I see in your comment section a lot, and we get kind of blowback on this too, is there will be women that will come at you where it's like you're almost threatening a system that they've bought into. And I think there's a level of, and respectfully, naivety there. Like they don't know what they don't know.
Yes.
How do you handle the backlash that you get from women when you say we should be expecting more? We can ask for more. You don't have to do all these things, where you've also got someone whose identity is so wrapped up in this is me, this is mom, I am the caretaker, I am all things. And maybe everyone's brain's a little bit different. Maybe some people enjoy it. I mean, I can't say they don't, because they're telling me they do. So I have to assume to some degree they do. But how do you handle that?
I think it's knowing the conditioning that we've all been under, and how hard it is to move past. A lot of it, for especially older women, is religious reasons, and a lot of it is that they haven't done the work. They don't know. They're just not, like, we're just now starting to see women understanding these things, understanding the system, understanding how it's worked and built against them and not to benefit them whatsoever. And we've only done that because we have these platforms that have allowed us such reach and such way to reach women and have connections in ways that other women never did. And a lot of times, if we think about it, it was only in the 70s that women could open their own bank account, that they could get their own line of credit. And that's a lot of unpacking of how women were essentially trapped. They didn't have any choice, really. But if they had a male co-signer, whether it be a father or maybe an uncle or a friend, if they wanted to be a spinster and live their freedom, they still had to have a man sign off on that. And a lot of older women just don't know what they don't know. But then we've also got this awful trad wife content, and we've got these divine feminine coaches that I don't think truly understand a lot of things, and that's okay. I try to give space for that. I try to those people, they're living their truth, and I'm living mine, and I don't agree with it, but I'm also not going to dictate it. I think it's slippery slopes, but it is hard because women have gone through such hard conditioning. And I think women think that these trad wives think that, like, the lives in the 50s were nice and cushy, and they weren't. Women were lobotomized. Women were living on barbiturates. They were beaten mercilessly by many husbands. And whether they believe it or not, these trad wife creators, they're making money. They're working. I've been creating content for years. It's not easy. I know you guys know it's not simple. And they're creating it much more intricately than I am. They're filming, they're editing. I get on there and I yap for 3 minutes. Like, I'm not doing a whole lot of editing. If I ever do like a day in the life, oh my God, I hate it so much because it's so much work. And that's what they're doing. That's work, whether they want to think of it that way or not. But I think most of it is that women never learned that they could ask for more. Women never learned that it was acceptable to challenge the system. And if I've ever been anything, it's it's not easy. I've never been easy. Never been easy as a child. I talk back, I question things, and I've only gotten worse at it as I've gotten older. And it's because I just realized that, like, who said? When I started having my kids, it was like, oh, only make them one meal and they've got to eat it. They're going to be hungry. Who said? Who said that? Who said that when my kids question me that's disrespect? Who said that? And why? I have to tell my husband this a lot because my kids are, I wonder where they get it. My kids are mouthy. And they're like, they question things. And my husband is like, that's disrespectful. And I'm like, no, I don't want my kids to be blind followers. I want them and I expect them to question me. I will teach them the nuance of voice and tone and how we approach things. But at the base of it, I think women don't know what they don't know. And they don't know that you can ask for more and that you should be expecting more, and that the shit that you are doing now from your husband or you're getting from your husband or the men in your life is not enough. And it's okay to rock the boat. We should rock the boat. Tip the boat over.
Yes.
Burn the boat down.
I love that. I love that so much. And it seems like so much of the support that's been there for women over the years. Like, so when it comes to like spousal support through addiction and things like that, there's a program called Al-Anon, and many people find it very helpful because of the community that exists there. But the AA program was written in 1939, and it was written by men. There's a chapter called Two Wives that I would love to get your feedback on. It's the most misogynistic, disgusting thing you will ever read. Ever.
Great.
It basically tells them like, you have to like, I think it starts out literally, it says, to our women folk. It's just, it's awful. But it's written in the 30s, right? But this is what they had. And that program still exists today. And it perpetuates this message, and this idea is that you shouldn't be asking for too much. Do not upset him. Do not rock the boat. Take a step back. Tolerate. It teaches you how to tolerate abuse. And in our opinion, can't prove this certainly, but divorce women could not get divorced. They could, like you mentioned,
they couldn't open a bank account. So why could they get a divorce? They still had to have a man. They had to learn how to deal with it that time. And that they were conditioned that way. And that wasn't that long ago.
Yeah. And so many of these systems have been set up to save relationships. Like, let's just save them. Like, the marriage is important. The family is important. And I don't believe that families aren't important, but I don't think that every relationship should exist. I think that, like, when it comes to divorce, it's so taboo. But it's like, I love that sound clip that's out now. It's like, leave your husband, leave. It's hilarious to me. And it's like, there's so many situations where it's like, there's no other solution here. They're really not. Like, you can try as you will, but you shouldn't have to be doing this. You shouldn't have to have these conversations. And the support systems that are out there are inadequate most of the time because they're perpetuating, figure it out, stay together no matter what, because that's what's been expected for the last 100, 200 years.
Yeah. It's funny because I've been, the more like when I started out, I really wanted to help with fair play. I wanted to be a facilitator, and I wanted to help, equalize households and domestic labor. And then I realized that, that still falls on the woman to do. And then the more I talk to women and the more I've learned, the more I am towards liberating women to freedom, whatever that might look like. Because unfortunately, I believe a lot of marriages will never be equal, no matter what you do, because you have a lot of men who will never see their partner as an equal, who will never empathize with their partner, who will never appreciate the work that their partner does because they think it's below them, because they think it's feminine, and they won't do the work to unpack that themselves. And I was telling my husband, I was like, I want to do more with my platform, but the thing that I keep coming back to is the lack of assistance for women who want to leave. And I never wanted to be like pro-divorce. I'm not pro-divorce. I'm pro-woman living freely and happily and healthily. And a lot of times I think that means not staying in a marriage. And I watched the show Made on Netflix, and it's about this single mom who wasn't working, who leaves her abusive boyfriend and has nowhere to go, and then finds how hard it is to use the system of government assistance. And she goes and she's like, I need a job. And they're like, where do you live? And she's like, I can't go back there. I don't have another address. And they're like, well, if you don't have another address, you can't get a job. And you can't get a job if you don't have childcare. And if you can't have childcare if you don't have a job. And it's so messy and it's so fucked. And it's that way on purpose because it keeps women in marriages. Think of how easy it is to get married. You sign a fucking piece of paper. It is hundreds of thousands of dollars to get a divorce. And it's set up that way on purpose. And that's, I keep going back to, I really want to put together a process of what it looks like for women to leave their husbands who might not financially have the means, because it's not easy to figure out. The system is not easy. It's a lot of hard work. It's a lot of misunderstanding. And we know that from the time a woman decides she's going to get a divorce to the time it actually happens is 2 years. It's 2 years of a lot of work of going back and forth, of probably trying to still think that she can save the marriage, going back and forth and realizing, fuck, I can't do this. And we love to tell women that they're blowing up their families. We love to tell women that it's their fault, instead of saying, I had a man tell me that I was like, divorce your husband, if he's not going to do the dishes. And he was like, you're going to divorce your husband because he didn't do the dishes. And I said, you're going to allow your family to blow up because you wouldn't do the dishes?
Great question.
Yep.
I mean, is that where you're at? Because you feel like you go to work that you don't have to do the dishes and you're going to allow that to happen instead of saying, wow, okay, I could do the fucking dishes and, and be much happier in my life. We put it on women because we know that women are emotional and we know that women are more likely to stay. And it just perpetuates women's unhappiness. And I think I hate saying that, like, oh, you should stay for the kids. Your kids see that shit, and your kids at the very least deserve to see one happy and healthy parent, because otherwise you're not really setting a good example for them. And more has come out about that. It's not best to stay for the kids. It's actually worse. You tell anybody who's a grown adult with parents who stuck it out for the kids, we're all like, really wish you wouldn't have.
Yeah.
Like, for everybody's sake, God, just get a divorce. This is horrible.
Christmas was so
Like, they're
awkward.
aware.
Why'd you do that?
Like,
Yes,
yeah,
yes.
kids are aware, but women deserve to be happy. They deserve to be healthy. And I don't think divorce should be as taboo as it is, because it's taboo, because it keeps women in their place and it keeps the machine going.
Something that I see, I think you made a video about this yesterday, and Paige has had the same thing. Paige, I want your thoughts on this as well. Is so many people like pointing out hypocrisy is like the new national sport in the United States, where it's like, ooh, you can't speak on that because you're still married. Why don't you just leave your marriage? You can't tell me what to do. People say the same thing to Paige, like, well, you stayed. Why can't we stay? But I think that it doesn't exclude you from the conversation. In my opinion, it actually makes you both experts in it, because you know what the other side looks like and you know what it doesn't look like. And it gives you the greatest basis of comparison.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's so funny because most of the time the women get it. When I say, as a happily married mother of 2 children, don't get married and don't have children, they're like, oh shit, I'm going to listen to this. I'm going to listen to her. She's been in it. She's got a good marriage and she's still not recommending it. And it's because I say that with all the privilege that I have, all the things. I have a good marriage. I have a supportive husband. I have close family that has helped me to raise my children, that is there when I need them. I have that village, and everything is still stacked against me. And I still don't recommend it, because that's the exception. This is the exception. Imagine if I didn't have those things and I still had to keep going. I didn't have a husband who schedules appointments and deals with the school and takes care of the kids and really participates. If I didn't have that, I would probably have 10 autoimmune diseases. I would be burnt out. I would be resentful, and I would hate life. And my kids wouldn't have a happy and healthy example of what, life could look like. And I think that's a huge, huge disservice. And I made one today because if I was a bitter married woman telling you not to get married, you would say I'm bitter. I should have chose better. You can't win as a woman. I'm saying I'm happily married with a good support system, and I still don't recommend it. What do you want? What do you want? Do you want an unhappy woman to say don't get married? Would you believe her then, or would you blame her?
Right.
I don't know. I don't know what you want. I don't think people know what they want. I think people want to believe and romanticize marriage and motherhood, and I won't do that, because I think more women need to know the harsh realities.
Yeah, we're going to have Celeste Yvonne on soon. She wrote a book called It's Not About the Wine.
Love Celeste.
She is amazing. I read her book, and my brain exploded. I'm sitting there reading. I think I read the entire thing in like a day. And just that perspective, you're right. Like what's expected versus what men have to do in any given day. And it blows my mind that people in healthy relationships are saying this, and they're being told you can't speak on that. And you're right. There's the hypocrisy from the other side that says, well, if you do speak on it, it's because you obviously were at fault for this divorce in the first place. You're just bitter. You don't choose well. What was your part in this, and all the bullshit that people say. Like, I think that, and I see this a lot from, I shouldn't say it's like, I think both sides probably do it, but I see it more from like the conservative male side, where they love to play this whataboutism game, where it's, you can bring up an issue and it's, well, what about this? Or what about that? You know what I mean? Like, but I'm talking about this in this 1 minute fucking video. I'm not saying that you don't have issues. I'm not saying that you don't have valid concerns. We're just talking about this. Like, let's not play whataboutism. As a content creator, How do you deal with that? And how do you keep things kind of central and focused? Is it just impossible with some people?
It is. It is. And I've learned that a lot of men are not asking in good faith. They don't have good intentions in it. They just want to come in and stir the pot. And sometimes I let it, because sometimes I'm feeling extra feisty and I'm looking for a fight, and I'll go toe to toe with you for as long as I can.
I have time
and
today.
and I have time today. And also, this will make really good content for me in the end. So let's go, man. Because I come with receipts. I come with the data. I come with the science. I don't talk to hear myself talk. I talk because there is important shit that needs to be said, and I can back it up. And when I talk, it's not a whataboutism. A lot of times it's not about opinion. My opinions are based from the data that I know. And a lot of times with women, I'll engage more because they tend to be more willing to learn. But some men will actually DM me and want to talk more. And I'll have longer, more in-depth conversations, and I'll really, really challenge them because I have a problem with the need to be right. And I will keep going until it's probably really bad for me. But I will keep talking about it, because the whataboutisms are just they're just a deflection.
That's exactly it.
From the topic at hand. Like when I say men in plural form, everybody knows we don't mean all men.
Right.
Obviously, I know good men. I have good men. I love good men. And it's because of those good men I know shitty men.
Yes.
And let's stay here. I'm not talking about all men. I never say all men. You'll never hear me say all men. You'll never hear me say I hate men. I won't do that, because I don't. I can empathize with men. And so it is hard. A lot of times I just don't play the whataboutisms. And the women in my comment section know too, like, don't engage with these guys. Don't engage with these people. It's not going to be a productive conversation, and you're going to drain yourself. It's an energy drain. And I have enough shit that drains my energy. I don't need to let some random man on the internet do it too.
Love that.
Yep.
As a content creator, I'm sure that you get frustrated at times. No doubt. You get burned out at times. Like, you have a healthy marriage. Like, we have a healthy marriage, and it's tough to go back in time and talk about maybe a painful time that was, or something that you're not living in anymore. So it's tough to keep it fresh sometimes. Like, how do you manage that personally, kind of drifting into like you and...
I think I try not to spend as much time in the past, because I don't find it to be as productive. There have been too many things that have happened. Like, yes, my husband and I had a hard time after our first was born, and we fell into traditional gender roles. And I was like, something's got to change, man. I'm not going to keep doing this. And because it did change, I was thankful. My husband got a different position. And we had long conversations, and we continue to have evolving conversations about how we split things up. But I think I always find more stuff in the present to talk about, because the more I know, the more pissed off I get. And there's one new thing for me to get pissed off about and talk about every day that's more important than things that happened in the past. The things that happened in the past, they made whom I am. They certainly paved the way for me to get here. But they're always that information is always there, and it's always weaving itself into my messaging and the content I create. But it's got to be present day. It's got to be what's happening today, what's going to happen, because I can't change what already did. But I can work to change what's to come.
Does it ever get frustrating? And I'm not going to say all, but does it get frustrating when some women see the issues, they've learned quite a bit from you, and then there's no action that follows? I know this is something that we both see a lot, where you've come here, you've been validated, you've been educated. We do our best to empower people, and then nothing.
It's incredibly frustrating. And most women know that, though. Most women already know. They already know. They already know they need to leave. They already know that they probably won't. And I'm not here to try to get you to divorce your husband. I'm here to validate women. I'm here to educate women. And I don't expect any woman that comes to me asking for help or asking for advice to take it immediately, because I know the conditioning. I know why I didn't leave. I was in an incredibly unhealthy relationship for 5 years before my husband, and I didn't leave. In fact, I almost married the guy. It was the worst thing I could have done, and I fucking knew that. I knew that, but I was still going to do it. And I can't tell you why, because I don't know why, other than I was just an indoctrinated idiot. But I know that. And so I hold space for that, because most women probably aren't going to leave. And I just kind of go in it without expectation. But I can't help them financially do it. Most women can't financially do it. That is the biggest roadblock for women in leaving, is
that was going to be my next question.
Financially do it. So many women are that, and their kids. Financially and their kids are the two reasons that women continue to stay, because they're afraid of leaving their kids alone with their husband. Yep. He's not been participatory now. Yep. He doesn't know them now. I would be terrified to leave them alone with them for a weekend, like, ugh, that's a terrifying thought for women. Mm-hmm. And also they can't financially. And so I just kind of have that expectation when I talk to any woman, is that I'm not expecting her to leave. I'm just expecting her to receive validation from me, and maybe some education, and maybe just get her to the next day.
And there is really no magic bullet solution for that. You're right. Like, that's the same thing that we hear from our listeners and followers, is like finances is a major obstacle to being able to get out. It's really tough. And I know you're not a financial expert, but do you have any thoughts on, like, what are some things that someone can do, like, that hasn't been in the workforce for a while, to get out there and to start to maybe to squirrel away some money, to open a bank account? Like, do you have anything like that?
God, I don't, because I know the job market right now is absolute shit.
It's rough.
Mm-hmm. It's rough. And I don't know if there's not a lot of jobs that you're going to make enough money to be able to leave anyways, but you can save up for it.
Right.
But a lot of the times it's not necessarily safe. And a lot of women have really young kids and they can't afford childcare, so they can't even go and get a job. So then they've just got to wait. They're playing this waiting game. I just got to wait till my kids are in school. I got to hope my husband doesn't want to have another baby, or that I don't, contraception doesn't fail me. And I've got a plan. Takes 2 years for women to leave, from the time they decide to the time they actually divorce and do it. That's 2 years of planning and prepping. So it's hard, and work isn't easy. There's no easy, I didn't fall into making an extra income from content creation. What you haven't seen is 7 years of working on it behind the scenes. And I don't do it full time. It's not my job, because I'm not at that point to be completely sustainable with it. And so it's so hard. It's wait until if you have childcare, get it, take a job, any job that you can get. It might not be the most desirable one, but if it's a way for you to earn some money and set it aside while you plan and create your little nest egg to leave, do that. But before that, I'm an advocate for prenups. Get a prenup. I talked to, my friend Paige and I talked to, like, Atlanta's #1 family court divorce attorney, the third most. And it's so important for women. It's so important. And it's important for men too. You have, like, the biggest joint venture you're going to, come to is 2 joining forces of money. This is a lot of money at stake. It's ensuring that it's not even that, like, oh, I get half of your money. It's ensuring that neither of us are going to go broke in the case of divorce, because we've already got it laid out. We don't really need attorneys. It's already here. It's already validated. This is what's going to be able to keep it clean, because 41 out of 50 states are not equal divorce states. You are not entitled to half. Those judges get to decide. And if your husband can paint you out in a bad light It's not going to look good for you. And he probably can because he's going to afford a better attorney because he's got the money.
I didn't realize that. There are 9 states that are not equal divorce.
Yes. You are not automatically entitled to half. It is up to the judge's discretion. You could get 40. You could get 80. You are not automatically entitled to half. And even then, you don't get it until your divorce is finalized. And at that point, I'm not really sure he's going to have half to give you because that divorce is costly.
Right. So, and we can all three, there's not an answer to this question I'm about to ask, but like we can all three sit here and like wax philosophical about it. Like, what can someone do if they find themselves in this untenable situation? What can you do in order to bide your time or to find some kind of peace in the storm?
I think if you are truly like, I'm calling it quits, but you can't leave, I say remove all of your expectations from your spouse. And when I say that, it sounds like a lot more work. It sounds like it's going to be a lot more work because you're like, okay, well, I'm not going to expect him to do, to do dinner or to do anything. The couple times he might give the kids a bath or put them to bed or whatever no, that's off the table. But in all honesty, you've been doing it alone already. So it's just resetting and removing those expectations. That's incredibly freeing because those expectations are what cause a lot of issues for people is they have these unexpressed expectations that they're not sharing with their partner. And even if they still have those expectations. Maybe it's in their mind or whatever. And when those expectations aren't met or things aren't done, it just brings you back down a peg. And that just continues over time. And so if you can just remove that and you can just say, fuck it, I'm going to live my life as best as I can for myself, doing the things that benefit me the most where I can. I think that that's incredibly freeing because you're not saying, oh, well, maybe this time it'll be different. Maybe this time he'll listen. Maybe this time, he's gonna hear me out. And he's gonna change. No, just come to terms with the fact that this is what it is. This is how I have to move forward, and really find peace in the fact that he isn't gonna change, and you get to kind of live for you at that point.
Yeah, I love that. That's like when we discuss people detaching. That's what they get to. But I like how you framed it with don't have expectations. It's like pretending they're not really there and you just do your own thing. And then you empower yourself and you realize, you know what, I can do this shit on my own. Like I can do this. And it's like a breath of fresh air. I used to have to do that with him when he was in active addiction because I had to pretend like, you know what, you can't do anything. I'm going to just do it myself.
Didn't you say that you just had to pretend I was dead at some point?
I did. There were some times where I did.
God,
I did. It was easier for me to pretend that than it was for you just being around and having to be like a child or expecting you to do things that I know that you weren't capable of doing at that time. Mm-hmm. It sucks.
On the topic of expectations, we did a communication episode like a long time ago, like right when we first started. And I've maintained that in communication is important and communicating your expectations is important. And we had like a clip that was sort of like purposefully out of context to get people riled up. I'm sure you've done that before. So we tossed it out there and I got absolutely roasted and justly based on the actual clip. But it was like, listen, if you want your needs met, you ought to communicate your needs. And then it was overwhelmingly women saying, I shouldn't have to communicate what I need. I shouldn't have to communicate. Where are you at on that?
It depends on where you're at in your relationship. You have to set those expectations early on. I expect early on in my relationship with you, I'm going to have to express those needs. I will not continue to do so throughout the duration of it, but I will do so often in the beginning. And also I will leave if they're not met. I'm not going to, I'm not going to tiptoe around it anymore. That doesn't serve me. When my husband and I were first together, I was a waitress and he worked 3 to 11 with Sundays and Mondays off. And really, I only got Mondays off because I had to work all weekend as a waitress. But every Monday before we were together, he would go grill with his buddies. And I was like, okay, I don't ever really see you because he went to work at 3 and I was still at work and then he came home and I was asleep and it was a terrible schedule. But I was like, I never see you and this isn't working for me. I don't feel like I'm a priority. I feel like you're still prioritizing your friends. And if that's what you want to do, that's fine, but I'm not going to be here. And he was like, wow, I didn't think of it like that. Like, I'm sorry. Like, maybe I'll just go once a month with him if that's okay. And I was like, yeah, that's fine. Like, I'm not asking you to stop seeing your friends, obviously, but it was setting that expectation early on that if you want to do this, that's fine. I will not be here for it. I will not go along for this ride. I expect to be a priority. I will treat you as a priority. So early on in a relationship, you must establish those boundaries. You must establish your expectations. Moving on, 6 months, a year into it, I should not be having to remind you of the ways that I like to feel loved, of the expectations that I have for things. I shouldn't be saying, okay, this is like your 7th night of fantasy football or your 7th fantasy football league party that you're doing. What the fuck, man? I'm not going to do this. Like, no. And you have to hold, like, as women, you have to hold that. You have to hold that. Now it's your job. You've set the expectation. Now you have to hold him to it. Otherwise, there's no consequence, and he's going to keep going. We as women have to do that too. And we tend to be a little bit more lenient with it. For whatever reason, we really want to find love. We romanticize relationships, and we kind of miss those glaring red flags at times. But I shouldn't have to tell you. I don't have to tell my husband after 13 years that I like to receive handwritten love notes. I don't expect one every day. I don't expect one every month, but I do expect some. Also, I don't like funny birthday cards. Don't ever get me a funny birthday card again. Ever. He got me one for like our first anniversary, and it was like Lady and the Tramp, and I was like, what the fuck is this? I was like, don't ever give me one of these.
You think this shit is cute or something?
I sound like such a snot, but I was like, I don't like funny cards like this. I want something meaningful.
Yeah.
That's solid though. That's what you like. That's what you want.
You have to speak it.
Yes,
and
you
like,
do.
If you don't like something, like there was one time, I'll give another example. There was one time I had been asking for this ring. Like I worked on like the Helzberg Diamonds account for work, and they had this Morganite ring, and it was this beautiful pink color. And I was like, I love this ring. I want this ring. And for my birthday, we meet up at dinner. Our son is like 6 months old, and he's got this Helzberg Diamonds bag. And I'm like, oh my God, yes. And I've told him previously, do not get me a piece of jewelry unless it's a ring. I don't want nice necklaces. I don't want nice earrings or bracelets, just a ring. Here's my size. And so we get to dinner, and I see this bag, and I'm like, yes, it's the ring, and it's a fucking necklace. And I was like, my face speaks before my voice does. And I was like, this man. And I was like, I feel like such a snot because I was like, I don't want this necklace. But at the same time, I don't expect him to know that. So maybe I sounded a little bratty and a little snotty when I was like, I appreciate this, but I'm not going to wear it. Can I please take it back? And I don't expect him to be a mind reader. But this is where we tell women, like, oh, you're so snotty. Like, oh, he got you a boo basket, but it wasn't anything that you liked. You should just be grateful. It's the thought that counts. No, the fuck it's not. Because that's not thought. That wasn't you listening. That wasn't you thinking. That was you, I don't know what, but not giving a shit enough to pay attention and get me something you know I don't like. So that's never happened again.
Yeah, I think
but like, I have to say that in the moment when it happens. If you don't speak up in the moment,
yes,
you know, that's on you.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that everyone is entitled to have their own expectations. And if you communicate them, I think that you've done someone a courtesy. It's not snotty, it's a courtesy. You are well within your rights to have your own boundaries and your own ideas about, like, these are the things I like. Like, God fucking forbid you don't agree, but this is the stuff that I like. And someone can either meet them or not. And you're right. Like, what's crazy about men is that many men will perform very well in professional tasks, like in jobs and whatnot. They would fire someone after 3 months if they were still having to tell them the expectation is that you're here at 8 a.m. The expectation is that you return emails to clients. But then you in relationships are like, what do you mean? What the fuck? Like, no?
Yeah.
You fucking know. Act like you don't know. Yes, you know.
But they also know that they can get away with it. That's the thing. They know that like women aren't going to expect that much of them.
Yep.
And like I grew up with my mom, you know, I love my mom. It's a great woman, but you know, saying things to me like, men are just dumb. Men are idiots. You just have to spell it out for them.
We're not actually.
They don't see things the way you see them. And I was like, no, I'm not going to treat my husband like an idiot. One, because that's like really condescending and rude. Like he's the smartest man I know. Why would I treat him like he's fucking dumb? no, I'm not going to treat men like they're dumb, and I'm not going to let shit slide like that. Because if he were to tell me I want a Patrick Mahomes jersey and I would get him a Tom Brady jersey, I'd be like, well, it's still a jersey. He would be like, I hate Tom Brady. I wanted a Patrick Mahomes jersey, and like rightfully so. Like, speak up, man.
Man, that's just, we could go on and on and on about that one.
Yeah.
That's so good.
Yeah.
And I think we ought to cap it with this. What say you to people that claim that women's standards are too high? That's the issue. It's that your standards are fucking ridiculous.
Good. Because that weeds out the shit. Sorry.
Yes.
But like, if you come to me and you say my standards are too high, I know that you're not high enough for them. So kick
Peace
rocks,
out.
man. Bye. It's a waste of my time. I'm not. No. You can say that all you want, but they're still my standards. And if you're not going to meet them, that's fine. I'm not going to hold any ill will to you. I'm not going to be mean, but I'm also not going to settle for them, because I know what I'm worth and I know what I expect. And you can either rise to the occasion or you can just move on, and we'll call it good.
It's insane to me that people think that you would be asking, or Paige has always had very high standards. And I have always loved and admired that. I wasn't raised in a home where like healthy behaviors were exhibited. I learned a little bit later in life, but she had the standard and I rose to the occasion many times. It's like, I loved that. I loved the challenge.
It was a challenge.
I enjoyed it. I was like, I want to be that guy. Like, that is a guy in my mind that I want to be. Like, in the back of my mind, I could always hear like the better version of myself clearing his throat. And it's like, oh, I know he's in there. I'm just being a lazy son of a bitch right now. Or this is just kind of what I've been used to. Or I'm smoking weed too much, or doing any of the things that, we do. But I'd agree with that wholeheartedly. It's not the expectations the problem. It's that I think the bar is on the fucking floor for what it is to be a good man today.
It's an illusion, really.
Not even a real bar.
Not even a real bar. It's an illusion.
Oh my God. I absolutely love that. And
my husband says the same thing. Like, because my sister, everybody's always like, oh, your husband's mom. No, it was my husband's sister. My husband's sister has the highest standards for every man in her life. And she always has. And it's really thanks to her, because my husband was like, he saw what she expected from the men in her life and how she wanted to be treated, and she wouldn't accept less. She was a self-made woman. She's done a lot of work. She's, a CMO at a company overseas, and she didn't take any shit to get there. Like, she didn't, she's got high standards, and I thank her for that, because, and even my husband will say, he's like, I don't have any problem with it. He's like, I'm a better person because you push me to be that, because you won't accept less than that. And I know that if I'm not rising to the occasion, you're going to call me on my shit. And, it's this never stop dating your spouse. I'm always looking to be better for my husband. He's always looking to be better for me, looking to be better for each other. And there's, problems come when there's comfort and complacency.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. All right, Abby, we are huge admirers. What is next for you? Do you have any plans for the future? Like, as far as the content goes, not sure.
I don't. I've never been like what's your 5-year plan? I just fly by the seat of my pants. Like, I don't know. Like, I'm just here. I'm just living. I just go
with the flow
where it takes me. With the flow. I'm a type B. I'm just like, I just show up to shit. Like I said, I'm like Michael Scott. I find it along the way. I enjoy doing this. I'm going to keep doing it. And I don't know. I just kind of see where it takes me, see what opportunities come on the horizon. I'm not going to stop creating this content. So, I'm just going to be here doing my thing.
Amazing.
Keep doing it. Keep it up.
Love that. Where can people go to find out more about you?
You can find me on TikTok and Instagram at Abby Eckel. She is a page turner, and I have a content series on YouTube called On the Same Page with Abby and Paige, where we talk about all the discussions you should be having at various points in your relationship to help better equip you to handle it.
Awesome. Well, thank you for your time. Hopefully have you on sometime in the future after you've made the internet go nuts again. You've broken the internet once again. Looking forward to it. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, guys.
Thanks, Abby.
All right. Till next time, I'm Matt.
I'm Paige.
We'll see you.
Bye.